nectar pouring out of the hive. Look at all them bees. Well, hello, everybody. Hope y'all are doing well tonight. Welcome to the Thursday Night Bee Chat. And as you can see on your screen, we've got Mr. Bryan Zavada back with us tonight. How you doing, Bryan?
Great. Hello from Colorado. How are you, Keith?
Doing good, doing good. Weather's been really pretty sweet here this week. 80s, low humidity. No complaints, really. The next week we're fixing to go into the furnace. We got lots of days close to 100, so that's not sounding too good. But it is summertime. We'll take whatever they throw at us. But not looking forward to a market on Wednesday on an asphalt parking lot with it 100 degrees. That's going to be a little bit tough. But
that might be a fun topic of conversation tonight. How do you adapt your market setup for the hottest of days? Because that's something I've definitely learned over time.
Now I know it probably affects you more than me. I mean, my honey just thins out.
Yeah.
It starts running like water. But sure. You, gosh, with candles and other things that you have, a lot bigger deal. So yeah, we can get into that and see how you get around that. Hope to have a couple of more of our panel pop in here shortly, and we'll see who shows up. But so how's it going out your way, Bryan? I know a little bit further west, Glades had a lot of issues with no rain, no flow, no nothing.
It's definitely been.
How are you doing?
It's been challenging for sure. I've gotten some honey this year. Like I told you earlier, I've probably pulled about 500 pounds so far. So, I mean, that's good. That's something. Probably have another 500 at least out on colonies, but it's been tough this year. We have had some moisture recently. Yesterday, it kind of rained all day, so it was almost an inside day, and it rained at night. We had some moisture this morning, so that was awesome. Much needed moisture. We have our linden trees blooming. Keith, I just got last week you talked about gadgets, right? What do you need and what do you don't need? Right. I just got a brood minder just this year, and it was something I was thinking about for a while, and I should have pulled the trigger on it earlier, and not necessarily to know if a hive swarmed or anything like that. I'm trying to get a better sense of the nectar flow. So that scale on the bottom of the hive, the data I'm getting from that is what I'm looking at. And the first week I got it, maybe I've had it on there 3 weeks. The first week it was kind of flat. And it does this interesting thing throughout the day where you see it go up and down based on probably foraging behavior and then bringing in nectar and maybe drying it out. I'm not sure exactly what, but you see a pattern from day to day. But for the first week, that pattern stayed fairly linear. Hey, Brad. Hey. And then recently, that pattern has started a trajectory going up. It's not a super steep trajectory, but you can definitely tell there's nectar coming in. I actually had, for the very first time since March this year, I picked up a honey frame and wet nectar fell out of the frame. It was the first, I was like, holy cow. So
good for you.
So something's coming in right now. Yeah. So I've done a lot of juggling. This year I've put on my queen excluders. I took off my queen excluders because a lot of the colonies were just putting whatever was coming in below the queen excluders just because there wasn't that much nectar pressure coming in and forcing them up and through it. So I took them off. I've been taking off. And like every year I put in frames of foundation to get more drawn out. I've been going through all my colonies, removing all of those to make sure that any nectar coming in is going to be dedicated to honey. So I've done a lot of honey super management to maximize the situation. And the past week or two, I've kind of been leaving things be. There have been a couple of yards where I've pulled some boxes off and left, pulled the full boxes and left the not full boxes for whatever's left in the flow. So I'll get something this year. It won't be great. I'm not sure. Typically, our flow ends around July 4th. Nothing's been typical this year, though. Most of the calendar's been early, so we'll see about that. The other gadget I've been playing with, and I know you've been playing with too, has been the technically beekeeping smoker, which I've really been enjoying. I'm not sure for the same reasons as you, but as I've been traveling from yard to yard, hitting 2 colonies at a time, it's been nice to not have to light a smoker for that and then get it stoked again 30 minutes later at my next yard. I can just pull that thing out, and it's fun. It's nice.
Kind of the same thing here. When I go out to help my newbies, they're scattered all over the place. Yeah, I mean, it was such a pain to fire up the big smoker and then have to snuff it back out or whatever you needed to do. Because a lot of times I'm in my car, I'm not in the truck, so I've got it in the trunk. I carry around a big oven pan that I can put my smoker in, so I don't catch the trunk on fire. But still, you don't want it smoking in the trunk. But that new little technically beekeeping bee tech, whichever way it is, man, that thing's the trick. And I'm falling in love with that thing quick. So I think I'll probably still use my big smoker when I'm looking at going through 20, a whole bunch of hives here in my home yard. But man, if you just want to look at a hive, or most of the time I don't use honey when I'm messing with supers. But I put out a video today where I started checking supers to see how the flow was, and I wanted something there in case the ladies did go crazy on me, because they've been pretty ticked off lately, just in general. And man, you just got that little thing sitting there. And if you need it, you puff them. If you don't need it, no loss. It's just handy. It's just so handy.
It's effective as well. I was a little bit surprised on how effective it was.
It makes the bees scattered. They go hide. So pretty neat little trick. Now I'm still using, I'm using my DeWalt batteries, which kind of make it nice. It sets up real nice, when you set it on top of another hive. It's nice and heavy on the bottom. And I actually knocked it off of one hive, and it flew into several pieces, and I put them all back together, and it still worked just fine. So it passed I called it the Motorola drop test. We used to call that when we got new radios. We'd drop them off our belt climbing ladders, and it passed the Motorola drop test. So So what's going on in your neck of the woods, Brad? How everything's looking?
That little smoker replacement is definitely on my Christmas list. Well, yeah, we're just kind of at the beginnings of our nectar flow, and so I'm shaking down colonies and making sure they have space in the brood chamber, and making sure they have space up above for the honey flow too. And that's taken me a long time to do that, because it takes. Normally, I would just shake the bees down and put a queen excluder in and kind of walk away. But I want to do both of those, make sure there's space on top, so and on the bottom. So I'm actually going all the way to the bottom, pulling out all the brood from the brood chamber, putting that drawn comb in there, and then dispersing that up overhead. So I may be adding 1 or 2 boxes to some of these. So I think it's worthwhile, certainly at my level of colony count sort of thing, but it does take a long time to do that.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at.
So your flow right now, you pretty happy with it? Kind of normal, low?
It starts really slow. It'll be really slow for a week or so. And then 1st of July, then it starts kicking into high gear.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just almost like clockwork.
Okay, so yours seems fairly normal.
Yeah. Well, it'll be, what some people might call normal for the next week, and then it'll be a freight train speeding freight train. It'll be look out, stay out of the
Yeah.
way.
Oh,
It'll
yeah.
be like, not adding a super. It'll be adding two deeps at a time
Okay.
is what
Okay.
it'll be.
Awesome.
So yeah, yeah.
Okay. That's fun.
And I managed to get a graft in last Sunday,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so
Yeah. I
those
saw
are
that.
going along okay.
Okay.
I just checked them today, and
Mhm.
my take isn't real high, but it's it's pretty good.
Yeah. But you seem to really enjoy that.
I love it, just
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the
just
main
love it.
thing.
And
Okay.
the only problem with it is there's a lot of other work to do, and I don't get to do it as often as I'd like to.
Mhm.
I'd like to do it. I'd like to graft every couple of days, but I couldn't this week because we started getting rainy days this week. So they'll be ready to go in the incubator, I think, on Monday, and so maybe I can get a graft in on the weekend.
Mhm.
It's nice to have two grafts at a time in the builder, uh, to keep the nurse bees juiced up, to keep them producing jelly.
Right.
So that's kind of,
Okay.
I think, ideal, but I often don't achieve that.
Mhm.
So
Okay. Yeah, I never really heard it put that way. That makes sense.
yeah, that's what they tell me, that
Mhm.
allowing the nurse bees to kind of pause and then have to start up again, there's a bit of a delay that might not be quite effective
Mhm.
as keeping
Okay.
them going. People even actually put in a good frame of open uh, brood
Mhm.
that need to be fed so that it
Yeah.
draws all those young bees right there, put that right against the cells, and then they're
Yeah.
right there and they can feed the cells as
Yeah.
well.
I could kind of see some logic to that. I mean, if you nurse bees suddenly didn't have anything to do, they might get promoted to foragers or something. Because they might decide they don't need them for that.
There's
So,
a behavior that I was unaware of until maybe a couple of months ago. One of our senior beekeepers in our association described it to me. We're talking about swarm triggers, overcrowding, hot conditions, um, queen runs out of places to lay and reduced pheromones, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he said there's another trigger that you haven't listed. He said it's uh, it's what did he call it? Brood food saturation sort of thing. And what it is it's all these nurse bees are all juiced up to feed the larva, and there's no larva to feed.
mhm.
And so he said that's a real trigger for swarm prep, because that's an imbalance, and they need to address that. And that's just a trigger that they understand that's an imbalance.
Okay.
So I think that it could probably work the same way in a cell builder, maybe not triggering swarming as much. Although I have had a cell builder swarm on me.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if it was a swarm or more of an abscond, but they
Mhm.
left, and that was the end of my swarm, my cell builder.
Yeah.
Uh, but that's a thing. They understand that they have the ability to feed a lot more larvae than they have available to feed. So it's definitely a trigger.
Well, that's interesting because I've had a lot of trouble. And we've talked about it on here. The uh, the ladies plugging out the brood area with nectar, not leaving the queen anywhere to lay. Well, what you just said there, that's kind of that's a double whammy. Then not only does the queen not have anywhere to lay, then you end up with that worker bee. I mean, the nurse bee problem that you talked about, which can lead to swarming. So
Yeah, swarm preparation I think
that
is
actually makes
pretty
a lot of
complex,
sense.
and there's a lot of subtle triggers to it. I think. Um, One of the things that I hear from newer beekeepers is they'll say, "Oh, this colony was going to swarm, but I caught it in time. I found all the swarm cells and I knocked them all down, so I'm okay." And they say, "No, you're not. No, you're not." And the way I put it for them is, swarm cells are a symptom of swarm preparation, not a cause. the presence of swarm cells does not cause swarming. Swarm preparation causes the presence of swarm cells. So they'll swarm whether or not there's swarm cells. It's not going to stop it. It's not going to cause it, and it's not going to stop it. So that's just one thing. The only thing, if you knock them all down, then you've doomed that colony to never requeen itself, is what you've done.
Yeah. I try to tell folks, they're all proud that they just squished all the queen cells.
Yeah.
It's like, no, that might be a good idea.
I've been there.
You got to do some other stuff first.
I have been there. That is experience talking. I have been there.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That's a point to ponder. Had you ever heard that before, Bryan?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've also I've had to work with a lot of people who know just enough about splits and swarm prevention to be dangerous. They've done some swarm prevention in the spring, like they'll pull the queen in a nuke and let the original colony raise a new queen, and then 10 days later that original colony swarms, and it swarms again, and it swarms again, and it swarms again, and they go, I don't understand what happened. I pulled that colony back and it swarmed on me anyway. And they did like 90% of what they were supposed to do right, but they didn't understand the ramifications of pulling that queen out and leaving a whole bunch of queen cells in there. So they read the book, they followed the instructions, but they missed the page that said go back and then reduce those queen cells to whatever amount you need them to be. And then they're like, it didn't work, right? They don't understand why it didn't work. And they have 8 swarms and an angry spouse, you know?
I turned the right knob, it should have worked.
That's right. And now they have 2 colonies because they've got the original queen in a nuke now sitting right next to the older colony, right? So now they've actually got more colonies that they want. So I've been working with people this spring on you've got a lot of the concepts. However, this is a really important effect of what you do in that colony. And it doesn't, like, even if you're skimming, this is one thing I learned. I used to skim in the spring a lot, pull a frame or 2 from a colony, go back in a week, pull a frame or 2, and just keep it right off the edge of that swarming instinct. And then I got to the point where I had too many colonies where I just couldn't keep up that way. And I learned if that queen was healthy, you could cut it back hard in the spring and let it build up, and you can pull back a lot of its population. If it's a healthy queen, it's just going to replace that population. However, if you pull back if it's not a healthy queen coming out of spring, it's not really going to probably have a lot of brood to give to you at that point. So that's your first evaluation piece, that this queen might not be as good as others. But if you do pull a lot of brood and then it still doesn't catch up like the other ones, that might be an indication it needs to be replaced. But I mean, these are nuances of swarm prevention that you can only learn over time. Sometimes it's situationally, and man, the nectar flow this year was so unpredictable based on my years of experience. There's no way I could have created a spring plan, because there was nothing telling me in my years past that the nectar flow was going to be insane in March and then turn off. So it's you do what you can with what you know, and then you make adjustments based on what's there, and you do what you can.
Yep. Yeah, I mentioned that in that last video I did. Part of the pool of an experienced beekeeper is just having lots of options.
Mm-hmm.
When you see something, it's not just plan A, B, and C. It's like, oh crap, and I need to jump all the way to H.
Yeah.
Ain't no use even worrying about anything. We got to do something big time here. So now, Bryan, had you heard about what Brad was talking about, the nurse bees getting juiced up and not having anybody to feed being a trigger?
I haven't heard that being a trigger for swarming. No, that's a new one for me.
Yeah, that's interesting. That kind of connects some dots,
Yeah.
and it makes sense to me.
It's
So
it's easy. It's interesting to see how easy you can put a colony out of balance. You know, even a beekeeper's best intentions. I helped a lady it was almost a month ago now. She thought she was queenless, and she had the help of another beekeeper. And based on the story, I wasn't positive this colony was queenless, right? So I was gonna sell the lady the queen, and then the lady was like, "Yeah, maybe you can help me put the queen in." And normally I don't do that, but again, the red lights were going off. I'm not sure that this colony is queenless. So what happened was this lady got a nuke, and she's been feeding it. She goes into her nuke and she can't find any eggs. She can't find the queen, so she thinks it's queenless. She calls up someone else. That person can't find the queen. They think it's queenless, so this person refers her to me. She was feeding that colony and feeding it so much that they were drawing out comb, but any comb that they had drawn out, they had subsequently filled with nectar. So there was no
Of course.
way, right? So she was just feeding too much too fast. So she had thrown that colony out of equilibrium. That queen had nowhere to lay. So as I'm inspecting it, I'm like, I see larvae here. This colony feels queen, right? I find her on the last frame, right? And the littlest patch of eggs, right? And she has a new beekeeper. There's no way she's going to be able to interpret that, right? So I was like, well, slow down on the feeding, maybe lighten up the feed, or don't feed for a couple of days, but the queen needs somewhere to lay. And it was just that feeding, that stimulus of the beekeeper, which every new beekeeper is told to do: feed your colony, help them draw comb.
That's, you know what, the light bulb just came on for me with that, because that's incomplete instructions. Bees do not draw comb just for the sake of drawing comb. They draw comb to use it, and they're either going to draw comb so that they can lay brood in it, or store, resources in it, pollen, nectar, that kind of thing. So if you feed a colony, it's not just going to draw all this wonderful comb for you. They're going to fill that stuff.
Yeah,
right.
They're going to build it with something.
So all that advice that I'm going to say as a community, give to a new beekeeper, feed the colony, they'll build comb. That's incomplete, but they're going to fill it, right?
Yep.
And
then, of course, one of the questions she asks when I'm there is, when do I add a second box? And I'm like, well, let's work on this one first.
Oh yeah. Yeah. A lot of new folks, they hear feed and they hear give them space. They want to do it all at once.
Yeah.
Like, no.
And that's a tough place to be. Like, we all know, I think we've all been there, where we don't have enough drawn comb. That's a very difficult place to be. And you talked about options earlier, Keith. And one of those options is to have a bit of drawn comb in the shed.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah. That's one of those options. You can have things. And that's something that I think new beekeeper doesn't get. And what I thought when you said that was, you can create your own options by having a little bit of spare equipment. Have a couple of nuke boxes, a few, hive bodies, whatever you use, 8 frame, 10 frame, whatever you want to use. A few extra frames. Don't have just enough frames. Have a few boxes of frames in the shed.
Yeah.
Even if they're not drawn. Have a little bit of spare. Oh, look, there's a swarm in a tree. Free bees, but I got no equipment to put it in. So therefore I can't take advantage. I can't take advantage of that opportunity, right? So don't have just enough equipment. Have a little bit of spare equipment.
Yeah. But that's what you said about the drawn comb. It just popped in my head that the drawn comb is kind of the duct tape of the bee yard. It can fix so many things. It makes things so much easier. Getting that swarm homed in and actually making honey. The same year you caught them. where if you started with foundation, Lord, they'll draw it out for you, but still that takes time, week or two.
And
So,
as I recall, you use mediums exclusively, right?
Yep.
So there's a big difficulty when a person, does what in some parts of the world is the common standard configuration: deep brood chamber or double deep, and then medium honey supers, right? Because people are sort of taught that way, and that's difficult because you have nothing that's going to draw comb for you for your brood chambers for your next year, right? I always advise new beekeepers, if you're going to use medium honey supers and deep brood chambers, run your first honey super as a deep, right? Get that sucker drawn out, because that's your drawn comb for your next year, right? Yeah, they're heavy, but just take them frame at a time when you go to harvest and move them. Hey, Tom, and save your back. You don't have to lift a whole deep, right? I hear people with top bars and long langs and stuff. Well, I had to do this because I couldn't lift a deep of honey. Well, you've got like 30 frames in your hive now. How are you going to lift that? Well, you don't lift it. You lift it frame at a time. You can do the same thing on a 10 frame or an 8 frame hive. You don't have to lift the box. Just take a frame up, right?
Yep.
So anyway, little tangent.
That was a good tangent. So how you doing, Tom? I saw all those drums in the back of the on the trailer today. That's looking hopeful.
Yeah. We have goals set forth. Sometimes you don't hit the goals, and I don't know for sure that I'm going to hit it, but you can't know where you're going if you don't have some sort of a direction, right? So anyway, some of those things are out of our control to a degree, but I don't know. So we're still under somewhat of a nectar flow. It's hit or miss because of rain and things of that nature, but we'll see. So hopefully I fill all of them plus the 6 that I have currently in storage. So I don't know.
There you go. There we go. But yeah, I mean, you gotta plan to obviously you need a plan to if something fails. But when you're buying supplies, you've kind of got a plan to succeed. You got to make sure, I've got enough jars, I've got enough buckets, I've got enough labels. If the ladies do good, let's roll.
Absolutely.
So, if they don't do good, I'll use it next year.
Yes. I always bet on myself to win.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty optimistic person, and I try to set tangible goals.
Well, that's what I tell folks on resumes. If you can't brag on yourself, who will? So, yeah.
That's right.
But yeah, so the flow is looking pretty good. The honey, the nectar's coming in for you right now.
It is. It's been really inconsistent, and Bryan has kind of hit the nail on the head a little bit earlier whenever I kind of chimed in the background as I was having dinner. But what he's been experiencing there in Colorado, which you might think, well, those are completely two different climates. Those are completely, one is humid, one is green, one is dry. I mean, that's all true. But him and I have a very, very similar climate, with the exception of the humidity. That would be one exception. But, he's up at 5,000, 5,500 feet. I'm down around 800 feet. But the reality is, whatever weather he gets, most of the time, I get it 12 to 24 hours later. And again, our temperatures remain similar when it comes to that. Like I said,
and our seasonal rhythms are pretty similar as well. Our flow starts around the same time, it ends around the same time. It is interesting how similar it is. Yeah.
Well, so I've actually even messaged Bryan before and asked him, said, hey, what is things looking like in you? And just kind of trying to understand that, because it is very possible that I may see something thereafter. Now, I will say one thing. When I was out there visiting Bryan at the very, very tail end of March, I was sweating bullets when I was out there. And I've told this story once or twice before, but I'll say it again for people who haven't heard. I was sweating bullets when I was out there because, again, understand that Bryan and I have a very similar climate. The flows can obviously change. They can change from mile to mile. But he had copious amounts of nectar in his colonies when I was there at the tail end of March. And I was like, I probably shouldn't be here right now. I should probably be home managing my colonies, because the reality for me is, if what's happening in your hives is happening in mine, I'm in trouble.
Mhm.
I will say, thankfully, what was happening in his colonies was ahead of what was happening in mine by probably a couple of weeks. Thankfully, otherwise I'd have been chasing swarms the entire time. So I did get a little bit of time to do some early spring management, splitting, things like that before it ever happened. But going back to what you said, the nectar flows have been very inconsistent. We've noticed the same thing in our area this year. They've been up and down. Trying to track it's like trying to hurt a cat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or trying to put a cat in bathwater. Just not going to happen.
Mhm.
But so
And
we got a really,
the
really
crazy
strong
thing
early-
is, Tom, for us, if we would have put honey supers on at that time, we would have made a ton of honey in March. But that's
Yeah.
never a time where we have a nectar flow. And like you saw, I had put like a brood boxes on, so they were able to expand the brood chamber. So they built out a ton of comb and were able to expand that way. But that was one of those, like, I never would have guessed I could have made a whole bunch of honey at that time of the year, just because it never offered itself up at that time before. That was crazy. And then everything stopped. Did yours stop as abruptly as mine?
It did. I mean, it's like you going down the highway at 70 miles an hour and then slamming the brakes just straight to the floor. And that's how quickly it came to a screeching halt. It was frustrating, trying to manage that. So you get a really strong, heavy nectar flow, and the bees go into this mode where they're just like stocking things away in every corner of the colony that they possibly can. And then you throw the brakes on it, and then they all have their heads down working, and they pick them up and go, hey, where's all the nectar? And then somebody communicates in the hive, listen, guys, it'd be a really swell time to go ahead and build some cells and swarm. And so you're trying to manage that at the same time. It can be like a moving target from time to time. Frustrating, but again, with my attention span that I have, I believe that probably suits me well, because I like how the goalpost is always being moved around, and it keeps me guessing. That's what keeps it interesting for me. Frustrating at the time, but I love the lessons.
And for me, about maybe towards the end of May, I finally was like, I have to buy this broodminder thing. And what finally pushed me over the edge is every time I'm working my truck, I have bees bugging me in my truck. And I'm like, where's the nectar flow? You guys know when there's a nectar flow on, they don't care what's around, right? They're out and they're going for whatever's natural. When there's not a flow, that's when they're looking for stuff all around. All May, I was like, why are these bees bugging me all the time? Why aren't they? And that's why I was like, there is not a flow going on like there should be. And that's exactly what happened. I threw on queen excluders. I put on supers. I went back to colonies, and there was nothing. There was nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, man. It was, and some of those colonies had swarmed. Imagine those swarms trying to survive out in April after that big push of nectar. They had no food out there if they were trying to survive on their own. A lot of my colonies were requeening that had swarmed. So that was good timing for them. But also with the pulling back that we had done, man, I went out to Aurora sometimes, and there were times where the brood frames, there was nothing in the corners. They were working from hand to mouth for a little bit.
Yeah.
So then I was pulling queen excluders out when the nectar flow started coming in, because they started just backfilling the top box and didn't want to push up, So that was an interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Brian. Finish your thought.
I was just going to say that was an interesting example of why queen excluders get the reputation of being a honey excluder, because it's sometimes true. And this was the exact situation where it was a perfect demonstration of, man, I used it wrong, or my timing was wrong in the use of that.
That's right.
Excluder.
Yeah.
That's right.
Does anybody else have a love-hate relationship with the queen excluder like I do? I mean, there are times that I love it, but there's times that I'm like so frustrated. So like you just said, Brian, for whatever reason, and I don't know the reason why, and if somebody has some enlightening information, please share this with me. Why is it that some colonies in the same yard, under the same conditions and nectar flows of the similar strength, will push through a queen excluder and start putting stuff upstairs like they're behaved bees and everything is going swell and they're working for you, not for them. And then the colony right next door to it won't push through that to save their life, even if the conditions are the same on both. And I'll just preface this with saying, I don't put a queen excluder down if I have foundation only. I have to have drawn comb up there before I throw it down. And occasionally when the bees were down there working and I'm looking and I'm like, why are you not pushing up? You're really strong. You're going to cause me more problems later. And I wish you would not do that. I pull the queen excluder off and I throw it and I slap it back down and I'm like, fine, I've removed the honey excluder. Please do your job now. Okay. I'll take a little bit of the brood and the honey.
That was my first year. It was put them in there. Nothing's happening. Take them out, deal with the aftermath. And that's another magic part of using universal equipment, because my answer to that is one frame of brood. And if your first honey super is not the same size frames as your brood chamber, that's not an option for you.
Yeah.
But right. If it is one frame of brood, that's absolute magic. That bait frame, you put that frame of brood above that queen excluder, they're up there. Otherwise, they see that as a ceiling, right? They just look at that thing and they say, hey, that's the top, right? Otherwise, it's kind of like, hey, there is something there. And, it's brood. They're drawn to that. They go up there really fast. So I don't remember what equipment everybody runs, but if your honey super is not same size as your brood chamber, that's difficult. If it is the same size, one frame of brood, that's all you need.
The beauty about beekeeping is there's so many different ways that you can do it. Brad can run all mediums. It works just fine. I can run all deeps. That works just fine. Bryan can run a configuration of deeps and mediums. That works great too. But there's always little differences in each one of those. But the way that each one of us might manage, as far as maybe Bryan has a bad back. He can't, or nor does he want to lift a deep box that's completely full of honey. Maybe Brad has a piece of equipment that allows him to lift up 90, 100-pound deep boxes, 10-frame deep boxes. That's not a big deal. It's not a problem for him, So based upon all of our different ideas about how we should keep our colonies, maybe along with some restrictions that our bodies may or may not be able to accommodate, things like that, we can always do something different. For me, I enjoyed taking a drive by in the yard, seeing that I've got deep boxes and I say brood chambers. I see mediums and I say liquid honey supers. I see shallows and I say cut comb. Is there trade-offs to each one of them? Absolutely there is. Like you just said, Brad, I can't take and pull up a deep frame into a medium box and expect that to work.
That's right.
Trade-offs.
Yeah.
So, maybe it's time for a little adjustment and say, well, maybe my first honey super is a deep, or do what Keith does and say, well, maybe now my brood chamber should be mediums, right? So that I have those options. And it just, again, we were talking about this the other night, that there are things that we do because that's what the bees need, and there are things that we do because that's what the beekeeper wants to do. And like you were just saying, we all manage a little differently depending on, our location, our, physical abilities, our physical want-tos, and, how we want to manage our bees. But we all have to kind of come to the same result, right? We're all chasing the same thing in general.
That's right.
Yeah. What Tom, his original question, I definitely don't have the answer on why they do that, but they do that. But but the answer that I have is what Brad said. I'll pull up the frame, and that seems to break the log jam, and here you go. So, but why definitely. They do that? That's why does this hive equal strength. Everything's the same number of boxes. Why are they plugging out the brood chamber with nectar and, and the other one's not? Both hives are putting some nectar up in the supers, but one just wants to put a lot of it in the brood box for some reason. I don't know. But they do it. You just have to deal with it.
Yes. Once you have gotten them in, and now just for reference, I don't always have problems getting bees to push up. I'm giving you my frustrating worst case scenarios. It's not every colony. Most colonies have read the books like that we write and everything's good, right? But there are some that offer those problems. That's why it's so difficult sometimes trying to explain certain things to a newbie. And I say that with the humblest opinions that say that it is very important sometimes whenever you're trying to explain something to a beginner beekeeper that you don't overload them with all the smallest and fine details, because all that gets jumbled up here and none of it makes sense, But how do you explain something in a manner where somebody says, should I use a queen excluder or should I not? And be like, you know what? You pull out your laptop, throw up a PowerPoint. It's an hour-long presentation. And by the end, they're going, I was really just looking for a yes or no.
Sorry,
right?
I asked.
That's right. They're like, you know what? We're going to go ahead and move on. Thanks a lot, but no thanks. See you later.
I tend to get that way. People will ask me a question, and the beginning of the answer is always, that depends.
Yeah,
that's right. But
So
Brad, that's good though.
pull up a
That's
chair.
passion.
Yeah, 5 minutes later, you see their eyes roll back in their head. It's like, okay.
Kind of like, I just wanted to know what hive tool to use.
That's right. That's right.
But it's so true.
Sometimes you have to.
If you do give them a short answer, your queen excluder was a good one. Should I use a queen excluder? It's like, yeah, they worked great for me. It keeps the brood out of it. You don't have to worry about it when you're extracting, and you leave it at that.
Yeah.
Then you come back to them a few weeks later, and they've got boxes of foundation stacked on top of the queen excluder. And it's like, oh, you can't use a queen excluder.
Yeah.
When you
And my bees formed.
Well, you told me they were great.
Yeah.
So you're screwed either way. You give them too much information and they glaze over, or you don't tell them everything, and they screw up because you didn't tell them everything. So
that's right.
What do you do?
Exactly. What do you do? Do you do the PowerPoint? Do you simple question and then pull up a chair and do the PowerPoint presentation for an hour and a half, or do you just say, "Well, do this," and then I hope it works out for them?
Because as soon as it's like, yes, excluders are great. They keep the brood out. You don't have to worry when you extract. But if you run foundation, you can't. It's like, it's like, oh Lord, I just asked a simple question and he's killing me.
That's right.
And the same thing. A new beekeeper will. I'll just say the same thing. A new beekeeper will go to set up, and I'll help them get set up and whatnot, and I'll have to have that talk with them. So, what box configuration are you planning to use? You can use deeps, mediums, combination of both. Have you thought about that? No, I haven't thought about that. Okay, have a chair and get the PowerPoint out. Here's the pros and cons to it, because it's totally up to you. It's completely 100% up to you. The bees don't care what size your boxes are. They do not care. These are the advantages and disadvantages for you, the beekeeper, because there's and I think that's a misconception with a newer beekeeper often is there's one way. You have to use a telescoping cover, right? Because that's what all the beehives have, right? No, it's not that way. So it's just, I think it's helpful to show them that, no, you can do this in so many other. Bees will make a hive in an old tire, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, do whatever you want within reason, with certain things in mind, right? You start running some wild, non-mainstream hive configuration, and then you go to buy a nuke, and you say, how come these frames won't fit in my triangle shaped hive, right? Well, it's because you made that choice and you hadn't thought that through, I think, at that point.
Yeah.
So just one example, that kind of thing. So try to steer them away from those big gotchas.
Yes. Yeah. Set them up on something that's more mainstream, whereas it can be more universal, so that some of those problems cease to exist moving forward when you make changes or different types of feeding, all these sorts of things. There was a gentleman I sold a note to last year. He didn't have any education. I always get these opinions in my head. I'm like, yeah, that colony's dead, But what I will say is I'm proud of what we're producing. We work really hard at it. And I don't just want to have any run-of-the-mill queen. I like the idea that these queens and a lot of our genetics, not the silver bullet, I will not say that, but seem to do a fairly good job of helping to control mites inside the colonies. He had me last year come out one time after or when to set it up. He said, I have this box. I'd like you to come out and set it up. I'll pay you for your time. And I said, yeah, sure. Absolutely. Happy to do it. I gave him a crash course on some things. And I also, before I left, I gave him several opportunities of learning. Local clubs, the state organization, a couple of what I would consider good YouTube channels, and said some of these are going to be a little bit sounding conflicting, but the more you get in there, you watch some stuff, you listen to some things, you get in there, you learn. It's a 50-50 thing. Book reading, experience in the hive, they'll come together. Anyway, he paid me one other time last year to come out later in the season. And I asked him, I said, well, have you done this? Have you done that? No, I haven't done anything. And I'm like, okay, we'll probably have a mess on our hands, but that's all right. Like, happy to come out. We did I think it was late in the season, starting to get broodless. We did an oxalic acid vapor, and I did the mite check, did some feeding, and I gave him some instructions to continue to feed. Anyway, moving forward, I hadn't heard anything back from him. I thought, well, maybe he's, taken the initiative and learned a few things. Well, anyway, we're now into the end of June. He calls me the other day and says, hey, I'd like you to come out and help me in managing the colonies and pull some supers and show me how to extract. And I'm like, sure. Yeah, happy to do it. Set up a time. I went out there today to look at it. And I should have asked a lot of questions beforehand. I didn't. Been kind of busy. So we get out there and I light a smoker, grab a hive tool, and walk back there with him because he isn't kind of in a semi-wooded set area, which I had guided him and said, hey, I would probably put him in full sun. But nonetheless, this is the problems you could see arise from that. Anyway, we get out there and look in it. And I'm like, well, if you haven't done anything, I'm like, I hope we have bees. Get out there and look. And bee entrance was flourishing. And I look at it. It's one deep box, one deep 10-frame box. I'm like, have you not added any boxes to this? And he's like, no. And I'm like, have we done anything in the colonies this year? He's like, nope. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, very likely this is not the same queen that's in there. I'm like, I would be genuinely surprised. Actually, I would be disappointed if it was the same queen, which means that she didn't build up and do what she was supposed to. So that would have been on me. Get in there and start looking. And the first few frames I pulled had honey on them. One of them on the outside one, because he had some Chinese stuff that he had bought, had some wonky comb. Go in a couple frames of brood or a couple frames of honey. Then I get into the next one just loaded full of pollen. And I'm like, it makes me a little bit nervous because I had not seen any brood yet. And I'm thinking they're queenless. They're storing all kinds of pollen in here. Might be a problem, but they weren't noisy. Get into the next one and I see really nice frame of brood. And I see a little bit of older larva just on the outside edge getting ready to get capped. And I'm like, okay, so we had a queen, a couple weeks ago. Going to the next one, I see a bunch of larva that's in there that's not capped. I'm like, okay, this is a good sign. So, but I also had seen a couple of swarm cells that were open on the bottom. And I'm like, okay, so this is most likely is not the same queen in here. I see open cells on the bottom. They've chewed their way out, which tells me emergence, not chewed in from the side and killed. Anyway, we get going through it. I didn't find the queen. It's in a wooded setting, a little bit dark in there. I went through it twice and said, okay, I'm confident there's a queen in here. I see all signs of it. They're calm. They're cool. And he wanted to pull the honey. And he goes, so what can we pull? And I'm like, well, that's your call. Your bees. I would not pull anything. I would push really hard to get him into a second box because we're getting later in the season. It's going to be starting to fight an uphill battle. So we are on a little bit of a nectar flow. So there is some stimulation there. Anyway, him and his son really wanted to try that honey. And I'm like, we'll go up to your house. And I'm like, grab a spoon or something like that. And I'm like, we'll dig into the comb and we'll leave what's everything else there. And they did. And they were pretty content with that. But the reality of my story here is that you have to do some management here. and I was trying to guide him through what I was doing, what I was seeing, but I didn't want to overload him with information because I knew that if I did that, it was all going to go up here, bounce around, and probably fall out his ears, right? So where do you stop? So again, when I leave, I say, here are some other opportunities for learning. So if I don't want to over-explain anything to you because I won't be doing you any justice. And then said, hey, he goes, well, can you come back? And I'm like, I will come back as many times as you want me to, you know. Here's my rate. Happy to do whatever you like. He said, great. And I said, I would check back in 2 weeks. We did put an upper box on. He had some feed out there. I'm like, you know what? For good measure, in case the nectar flow stops or slows down, let's throw that gallon in the top, keep some stimulation going, get him pushing up in that top box. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's difficult to understand how far do you explain something to somebody. Not really sure.
Well, when I talk to a new person, I try to make it clear that I don't have enough lifetime left to teach them everything there is to know about beekeeping, first of all, and that there's no way that I can tell them everything they need to know and everything they need to do. So I really push that on them and say, your education is your responsibility. Right? You have to do your education. You have to do your reading, you know, whether it's journals or I say YouTube, but there's so much misleading stuff on YouTube. It's hard.
Yeah.
And I'll tell them that, watch good YouTube channels, and I can give them a few. But just to really impress upon them that I can't be your only source of what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to learn to know what you're going to have to do. I'll help you along the way. I'll be here to take that phone call and help you step through it. But you don't just rely on me, because that's not going to work. That's not going to work for either one of us, really. I mean, heck, I don't know it all.
Yeah. And then they go to YouTube and watch 14 different beekeepers. And the next time you see them, they've got 78 different ideas on what they want to do with their hive.
Well, Texas Beework doesn't wear veils, so that's why I wasn't wearing, you know, I mean, just picking on that. But there's all kinds of stuff that they can emulate, and it's not real world, right?
Yeah.
For them, for their world, right?
Yeah.
Maybe real world for somebody else.
See, for me, for that person in particular, the question isn't where to stop. The question is where to start. You could tell them all the information about bees all they want, but that's not the conversation they need to hear. They need to hear the conversation about responsibility of animal husbandry and how they're just looking for the bang for the buck. They're looking for the prize at the end of the rainbow, and they want you to come and get it. So for me, I'd start that conversation and be like, why are you interested in beekeeping? Why did you get into this hobby? And start from there, because it's not a curiosity about bees. It's not a love for nature that you're describing, Tom. It's I want a jar of honey. And if that's the person's motivation, that would be the direction I counsel them in. If it turns out maybe they're just afraid of getting into the colony and that's the roadblock to managing the colony, okay, then you understand exactly what the obstacle is. But why do you have bees, sir? That's where I would start. What are you looking to get out of this relationship with bees? Because these bees are not going to be alive with the relationship the way that's going right now. And that's how, and you know, I wouldn't be so blunt like that, but that's what that person needs to hear. They don't need to hear about the biology of the bee or when the nectar flow starts and feeding that box to 80%. You're going to put another box on. They don't need to hear any of that. That's not important to that person. They need to hear about the commitment that they just got into by getting these bees. So that's where I would start with that customer.
Yeah.
Well, my conversation is going to change a lot next time. I'm going to say, well, Bryan told me to say, and here's his YouTube channel if you'd like.
That's right. And here's his phone number, and here's his soapbox. So
here's his address if you want to send him some hate mail.
That's right.
Okay. Well, that's a good wind up. What does that beekeeper want? The title of our chat tonight is, the little piggy went to a market selling your honey. I had several folks that wanted us to keep talking about this. This will be part 3, but they really enjoyed the first 2 parts. And
I actually did homework, Keith. I did homework in preparation.
Wow, that's great. That's great. So folks ought to appreciate that. I mean, I've actually got I've got my little page of scribble here. So but yeah, we hit on a bunch of topics the past 2 parts, part 1 and part 2. Kind of what I wanted to talk about this time was I'll run through some of the things we talked about, but aside from the homework that you've done, we obviously want to talk about that too. The things that we've talked about earlier, has anything changed? Now that the markets have started up, now that you've had time to think about which markets you're doing, your pricing, your branding, the folks that have been to a market or have your product on a shelf in a store, have you decided to change something and how your displays are looking on your tables or on the shelves in the store? That kind of thing. Have you run across any more competition that you weren't expecting that you got this year that you didn't have last year? How have you dealt with that? So that was kind of a really long run-on sentence, but we'll start up there with you, Bryan. Have you had any out of all those different things? Have you had any surprises or changes this year that you weren't really expecting, but you had to do or needed to do?
Well, preparing for a small honey harvest this year is something I'm thinking about now for sure. I was at a place where every year I was getting more and more honey, and this will be the first year where that number is going to be smaller. So that's something I'm definitely preparing for and thinking about. The end of the season in particular. Diversifying, doing a little bit more markets has been a little bit different, and our rhythm of planning for that has been a little different as we prepare throughout the week. This weekend, this is what we have. Saturday, I'm doing our regular farmers market. Sunday, we have 2 of our regular farmers markets. And then this weekend, Jen is doing a Saturday, Sunday festival all by herself. So we're preparing for quite a bit, and that's a lot of product as well to prepare for. So getting the rhythm of that is definitely a little different. As we hit the summer, we shift our product line with honeys a little bit. I try to do less creamed honeys and more infused honeys just because they deal better with the heat of the summer on the table as opposed to creamed honeys. So I do kind of change our inventory a little bit, and that's changed over years. That's just been through experience that we've learned. Those have been the big ones. The other big one is our Saturday market. Our big parking lot is being they're doing construction this year. It's at a high school, and the high school's putting up solar panels, so the whole big parking lot is shut down. So this is like Capitol Hill, Denver, and everyone, instead of that parking lot, is forced to park out on the street parking. So that's kind of been a nightmare as far as that part goes. But that market's so good that the crowds have still been coming. I was a little afraid of the recession and people's spending this year, but from what I've seen so far, I haven't really seen that being an impact on people's spending. So that's been nice.
Yeah, I haven't seen that in the market. If folks find something that they want, they're willing to spend. So
Yeah.
Now you said you back off on your creamed honey. Is that we talked about earlier about how hot it's going to be around here next week? For me, just running liquid honey, I just have thinner honey. But for somebody like you, Bryan, that has the candles, the creamed honey, all the different items that you have, the heat can cause you all kinds of trouble. So
Yeah,
is that
and
why you change your inventory levels of your products? Is that part of it?
Yep, that's why I changed my honey inventories, and I'll even bring less stuff to the market just because the one we have on Saturday, we face the east, so we get a lot of direct sun coming right into our booth. So we've tried to adjust our products and our booth. Like, you think about all the reasons for why you put things in certain places in a booth. One of them for us is sunlight, that direct sun on a product. So our liquid honeys are going to go right in the front. In May, our candles go right in the front of the table because they're very striking. People notice them and it slows people down. That's okay in the summer till like 10:30. And then we have to start pulling our stuff back. So I kind of have a modified setup where I bring a little bit less and have stuff more in the shade on the hottest of days. And it definitely makes a difference for sure, because I do a lot of fidgeting and worrying with products, and the candles can get soft on the bottom. So I'll pick them up and I'll move them around. And, if a customer doesn't come by, I'll go back to the front and move stuff around again, even though I just did it 2 minutes ago. Stuff like that. I don't bring the salves on the hottest days because they'll melt completely. The lotion bars do just fine though, so we don't have to worry about those. And then we have a cooler. I move stuff around the cooler. So like this Saturday, it's supposed to be 93 degrees. I'll bring 3 different creamed honeys and I'll have 2 of each of them out on the table to start the day. And then throughout the day, I'll sell those 2. If they don't sell, they'll end up back in the cooler. I actually bought a little insulated lunch bag so I can have the testers in that bag with a ice in there. So, because that's what I've had the tester just start to separate out on me, because that'll sit on the table all day long. So that one I'm going to address by keeping the testers in there, at least for the creamed honey, so I can have the infused honeys out for people to see. So there definitely have to be some modifications, but also with those modifications of the honeys not as visible pulling the customers in, it's important to have signage. So we have a big easel out front and we try to update our flavors every single time. And it actually, customers help me understand how important the sign is, because when I don't update the sign and they're like, do you have espresso infused honey? And I'm like, no, I haven't had that for like 3 weeks. Why are you like the 3rd person who's asked me about it? It's because I left it on the sign and they see it on the sign and then they ask me about it. So like that, those interactions are like, oh, people do read signs and they do matter. And I've got like the blocky male font writing, and I try to get my wife to do it all nice and pretty because she's got the artistic. I think that kind of stuff matters too. Color differentiation matters. So we have all the different markers and we try to do different colors. So it's not just one block of white text or all the same text. Different things to try to pull the customers in. Keith, have you changed your prices at all this year as you think about the cost of everything going up this year? Have you made price adjustments?
Yeah, I took my smaller bottles up a little bit in price, more to the dollar per ounce level for the 8 ounce and the 12 ounce. My pints, I went up a little bit on them. I added the gallon buckets and the honey straws, which I'm selling lots of honey straws. Now that, honey straws don't put hundreds of dollars in your wallet, but the profit margin on those little boogers is awesome.
That's awesome. That's totally awesome.
I mean, you turned that quart of honey from a $30 quart of honey into a $100 quart of honey. Pretty easy.
I get about half per pound that you folks get, and I think it would work out to about $35 a pound in a honey straw. Good profit margin.
The profit margin is great, and it kind of works both ways. The profit margin is great, but it's cheap enough where if somebody comes up, buys a quart, they got a kid with them, you can hand them a couple of honey straws, and it's not like it costs you a whole lot.
That's right.
For a little public relations.
Great,
so the honey straws, I sent some more honey off to the lady this week down in Clover, South Carolina, that puts it in straws for me. So yeah, that's been a nice little addition. I'm enjoying that. So, but yeah, I tweaked the prices up a little bit. But one thing I was going to ask you about, Bryan, competition. Has that changed in your marketplaces? Have you got more or less? Have you had to deal with that in any way?
Yeah, there's definitely been more at the one in particular. Have I had to deal with it? How do you deal with it?
Well,
I guess that's
as
my
far as,
response question. What do you do in response? Do you kick over their table when they're not looking? You know what I
You
mean?
could do that.
What do you do? How do you?
Not that
This
kind
is
of
one
deal. I'm
thing.
talking about with your
This is one
displays
thing
or your product selection or having something that they don't.
Yeah.
That sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Set yourself
Yeah.
apart. Yeah, set yourself
That's
apart.
what I do, Brad. I set myself apart.
Yeah.
So at our big Saturday event, our farmers market in particular, I've already done it once, and I have another one planned where there's like a center grass area where they have like places for people to sit, and they have a tent that they set up, and they'll have chef demos, and I'll do like a bee education demo. So for like not from 9 to 11, I'll bring the observation hive. I'll bring all my educational stuff. I'll talk bees, and then I'll point to my booth where Jen's selling the honey.
It can be so many things. Just signage. You can get the big inflatable Gumby guy that is doing that, grabs people's attention. Set yourself apart. Your customer service. Your friendly demeanor. These sorts of things. And I would really encourage everybody to strike prices off of that list. You cannot yet set yourself apart by prices, because that's a race to the bottom that nobody wins, not even the customer. So you setting yourself apart on price is a fool's errand, in my opinion. Actually, setting yourself apart by a higher price will work for you. You have to live up to it with your customer service, your packaging, your product. You have to offer that superior product. But if you can, people get curious. Is how come your honey is $1 more than the other guy? You should taste it. You'd know, right?
Yeah.
It can really work for you.
Yeah.
I'm with you 100%, Brad. Sharing that expertise. You can buy honey from other people at our markets, but you can't go into other booths and talk bees. You want to talk bees?
Are they the beekeeper?
Yeah.
Right? I've had people ask me at the table. So is this from your bees? Are you the beekeeper?
That's right.
Absolutely. I got this thing. I got this thing
bees.
to prove it. I'll come back with them, and so they love that to deal with straight from. People love the story, right from the beekeeper. I was working bees this morning, right? I harvested this honey yesterday. That sort of thing. They love that.
I guess, thinking about your question a little bit more and my response, like what can you do in response? There have been once or twice where we've been put by a vendor that's very similar to us, where we've asked for space. Like, can we be at the other end of the market so we're not right next to a vendor selling something similar? We've done that before. But again, just, instead of, we don't talk people down, we just talk ourselves up. So we've actually had people come into our booths and be like, what's up with that person's honey? It used to be good and it's not anymore. And I'm like, I can't speak to their product. I can tell you exactly where and I pivot right to me. I'm the beekeeper. I can tell you exactly where this honey came from. I made this batch of espresso honey on Wednesday and I bottled it Wednesday night, blah, blah, blah. And I'll just keep going off on all the things I know about honey. And And again, just talking myself up instead of talking them down.
Another thing that draws people in is a little sign on your table that of your charity of choice. A certain percentage of, put it like mine says 10%. 10% of all sales goes to this certain charity. And people look at that and people say, and you can kind of manipulate the sign too. The biggest thing on the sign is 10%.
Yeah.
right? So they see that from afar and they think, "Ooh, is that a sale?" Right? Do I get 10% off? Well, you kind of get 10% off because 10% of your money goes to this worthwhile charity. Um, and you get them to walk over to the table. So that kind of sets you apart too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
People love that stuff.
Yeah. So have you had to change anything this year, Brad? You haven't. You've just started making honey, but I guess you're still last year's honey as far as keeping honey on the shelves.
I'm kind of the oddball here among you because I don't really do a lot of markets, and one of the 2 markets that we do is not going to happen this year, so we won't do a market until late November this year. But I think the only thing that I've really changed is, well, I've changed a couple things. I've gone into a few more retail stores, and I began offering a new package. I don't know, it was last year sometime, maybe longer ago than that, but I haven't really started to push it. So I need to figure out how that's working. I need to get some data and run the numbers, as they say, to see how that's working. And what it is I've offered just a plastic squeeze bottle for what you would think is a 1 pound jar, 1 pound container. So I have my jars, my cream to my liquid 1 pounder, and now I have a squeeze bottle. And it's not meant to cannibalize my other products. It's meant as to increase sales because it's actually a little bit more expensive container for the honey. So I have to increase product volume to make it worthwhile, because if I don't, then I'm going to drop it. And that was one of the things that I did homework on. And I just sitting here thinking about sales and marketing and stuff and thinking, there's a lot of really cool principles that I think people could benefit from. And that's one of them is cannibalization, they call it. Product cannibalization. If you have product A and you've been selling it for, maybe a few years, and you bring in product B, and the problem with product B is the way what the product is and the way you've positioned it for your customers is you don't end up selling more product. It just cuts into the sales of product A, right? It just totally steals the sales. And the problem, if it's a cheaper product, then you're kind of cutting your own throat, right? And it's quite often going to do that. And I know my little squeeze bottle will do that, but there's a break even on that. If I could put up with, say, 40% cannibalization, if I get the 60% additional product volume, right? Sort of thing. So you got to watch that kind of thing. I used to call it undermining, and that's why I dropped my half-pound container. I used to go to markets. I'd have a 2 pound. I'm speaking to a imperial or U.S. measures audience, so I'll talk in pounds. It's not exact because it's metric, but I'll talk in pounds. So I have my 2 pound jar, my 1 pound jar, and I had a half pound jar when I started, right? And I went to markets like that for the longest time, and then I kind of thought I didn't have real solid numbers on this because it's hard to do the numbers on something like that. But I really got the impression that half pound jar was totally undermining my 1 pound jar, right? And so I just banished the half pound jar, gone. And because you always have the person who will, no matter what it is, buy the cheapest thing on your table, right? So make sure the cheapest thing on your table is not that cheap, right? Because they'll still buy it.
Right.
Which can be the problem with honey straws sometimes, because sometimes people will buy that, just to feel like, oh, I'm giving them something, but it's only like a buck or two, and then they pay on with their credit card, and you're like, thanks.
Yeah, they want to put $1 on their credit card.
Yeah.
And yes, good point, because that's also how I feel about honey straws. Is kind of, I hate having a 50-cent thing on my table, but it's not really it's the kids that buy them. I saw
Yeah.
lots of kids. You get the gaggle of teenage girls, right? And they'll come and one will buy it, and then the next one will come and buy it, and then there's three more lined up, and then they keep coming back all evening, kind of thing. So I sell quite a few that way. Honeycomb sells like that too. You sell one to a teenage girl, and then suddenly you got 5 teenage girls at the table buying honeycomb.
I totally agree with your concept of cannibalization in that smallest product, but I also agree with, I think what you were saying is there are times where it is a good product on the table anyway. And for me, one of those examples was at the market, we often get parents coming in from out of town visiting their kids, and they want to buy honey, but they can't because they've got to take it back on an airplane. So we haven't done it this year, and I don't know why, but in the past we've gotten those little honey favors, and we'll bring a couple of them every week, but not put them somewhere prominent. Have them there, but when that particular customer comes, be like, oh, we have one of these,
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
not like all the customers seeing the smallest jar of honey to choose from, just targeting that product for that specific customer that we're seeing wants a small jar of honey for a really good reason.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So how about you, Tom?
I want to make a small comment based upon what those guys were saying. I agree with everything that was said. But what I will say is we do sell honey straws, 2 of them for $1. People are like, oh, they're 50 cents. They're 2 for $1.
Yeah.
The least amount you're going to give me is $1, right? But anyway, when I'm pointing out, when we ask people, I'm like, hey, welcome to give you a sample, whatever we've got. And I'll start with some of the things that we have on the table. We have our light extracted. We have our dark extracted in several sizes here. Mostly glass. We have one plastic option. And then we talk about our bourbon barrel aged honey. That's won 2 different awards. We talk about our creamed honey, and then Melissa has recently flavored a couple. We almost never mention the straws. They're kind of sitting off to the side, fairly inconspicuous. And what's interesting about it is I don't notice that people automatically trying to grab those. Most of the time, the most common size that we sell would either be a quart, most bang for the buck, or a 1 pound squeeze. Those are the 2 that we move the most of. And we had recently raised the prices on a couple different things. And actually one time I had somebody say, oh, well, why did you raise the price? And I'm like, supply and demand. And I'm like, we sell a lot of these, and we felt like that we were undercutting ourselves a little bit in a way. And we have a premium product here. And I'm like, we want to display that. And they're like, oh, okay. We even had a couple of vendors say that. And they're like, well, last time, da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry. It's still, we only give this much percentage off. I said, we're one of the largest honey suppliers that actually make our own honey here in the St. Louis market, in the St. Louis region. So if you're looking for local honey, most people will sell out. We're probably that small 5% that'll still have it the rest of the months out of the year. So you can still get our product. So I feel like that's the edge I have on it. I have never been a fan of racing to the bottom. I will purposefully go out, even when I feel like my margin's really good, and I realize that some people in my area have raised prices. Melissa and I have a conversation about it, talk about what we have. Would we have to pay more money for our labels, bottling, et cetera, et cetera? And I'm like, I think we need to raise prices on this and this. And Melissa's always been a little bit hesitant in some ways. I'm like, well, I want to wait till whatever. And I'm like, let me ask you a question. I'm like, why do you want to wait? And Bryan, myself, Melissa, we've all had the same conversation before, right? We've all had the same input on it. And I'm like, why do you want to wait? Well, I just feel that blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, this is the way I view it. Not saying it's right or wrong, but this is the way it goes in my head. If you go to, I don't know, McDonald's and you buy a Coke, it costs you X amount of dollars, right? If you go to the ballpark or a fair and you buy that same Coke, a same or similar size, it's going to cost you exponentially more. It's the same product. It's the area which that you're selling on. And I'm like, because I've even mentioned before, I'm like, at certain events, I think we should consider and kind of talk this through about raising the prices on a few different things or upping it by a percentage and having a different price list on it. She's like, well, I don't really feel right doing that. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about the different struggles that we might have, or the things that might cost us more money, or having to be at this event longer, or 2 days, or whatever. And I'm like, I want to go there, and I want to leave with dollar bills in my pocket. I want my time to have great value. So we're always trying to figure out how to do that. What's the best way to do it? I feel like that if you have a really good product, people enjoy it. We have people that have never bought from us before throwing our name up in all these social media groups. And you can usually recognize a lot of the people. I'm like, oh yeah, they bought from us or whatever. I mean, we're still small enough that we can still recognize some of that. There are so often now that brand recognition is starting to take over for us, which is a really good thing. I feel like we're really starting to kind of build a brand here, and that can make a difference too. Having brand recognition, everybody might know Brad in his area and his honey and say, hey, we've loved it. We love what he's got. He's a personable guy. We know that he produces it himself, and he's very knowledgeable about it. I feel really comfortable buying a premium product from Brad, and I will absolutely pay more. That's kind of my mindset as a customer. Occasionally, you'll have that guy that walks up to the table, and I actually don't mind it. It does not bother me in the slightest bit. I have become very comfortable over the last 26 years of being a business owner, of understanding that every customer is not my customer. That's a hard one to get past, and it was a hard one for me to get past early on in my career. But I always go into it with a mindset, understanding that even a good location that we sell honey at some point in time, that will come to an end. I go into it with the understanding that at some point in time, I will no longer have that customer. And it may not just be because they've moved somewhere else or something might have happened. But again, we want to keep our brand recognition growing, keep our integrity intact, which is extremely important to me. And just have everybody out there that's possible when somebody's like, we're looking for local honey. And they're like, I have no idea about this company, but you know what? Via Honeybees, everybody else throws their name out there. Why shouldn't I? They feel like a savior, I guess. Hey, I've recommended a company that everybody else does, but I did it first. So I don't know. There's a lot that I think about whenever we're talking about pricing, how to move your product, how to keep your integrity intact, not bash the guy sitting next to you selling it cheaper.
Yeah.
And I've never seen the value in that, I guess. Comes off as very tacky to me. Matter of fact, most of the time I make friends with them, and you chat with them, you build a relationship with them, and just like, hey, I realize we're selling the same thing here, but you know what? We can be friends and help each other out, in some way.
I jump off of that. Like with, if the guys, I'm sitting beside a table that's selling, canola honey for less, and somebody starts talking to me about it. The first thing is, it's because it's different honey, and you don't think it's different honey, but you haven't tasted it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Taste it, and you'll see. Do a side by side, and you'll see that it tastes different. And I'm not saying that his honey tastes bad. I'm saying my honey tastes different, because his honey is the default. That's the honey that you get everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And if you want something that's a little bit different, and I can go into the differences, there's a big agricultural crop kind of thing. Mine's a little more just kind of whatever grows in the area,
unique,
wildflower kind of a thing. And so, yeah, and again, it all comes back to how you set yourself apart. And it takes a lot of time. I loved markets for that, because you could talk to people and you could see the impact of the things you say right away. If I change my label on my retail product, it takes like a year to find out how that label change impacted my sales.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas I'm talking to somebody at a market, I get feedback immediately from that person. Did I make the sale? Did I not make the sale? Look at their facial expressions. Look at their body language. How does that thing that you just said impact that person? That is huge market research at the table.
Well,
that's a reason to do markets in and of itself.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, most definitely. I will tell you this. So anybody that feels is not maybe an outgoing individual, much like myself, very kind of, kind of holds back a little bit. I'm just kidding. I'm being sarcastic. No,
Hey,
but
dude, I'm that person. I'm an introvert. I don't want to do that.
Really?
No. But
So
that serves
tell
my
people,
objectives.
understand that when you are selling a product, you're really not selling the product. You're selling yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
if you are half confident in if you are half confident in what you are selling, guess what? That customer is not going to be real confident in you either. I mean,
You're selling
you
the
can go in there.
story. You're selling the
Yeah.
story. And yes, you're selling yourself because you are part of that story and you're a very important part of that story. But it's more accurately, I would say, you're selling the story of, okay,
Mhm.
describe the honey. This is what is about the honey, the kind of landscape, the season, the work you do. Tell about your family if you want, whatever, and just
Certainly.
immerse them, make them part of the process in your
Mhm.
storytelling. And people love the story. They love that. I had a couple here earlier this week, I guess. And they were existing customers. They had just never had the apiary tour, I call it, and they showed up to buy honey. And I said, I was having a great day. It was a beautiful day. Weather was perfect. The bees were happy, and I said, do you want an apiary tour? Do you got a few minutes? Let's go look
Mhm.
at the bees. And they weren't going to do it, and they did. We stood there for probably an hour and a half. They'll talk about that for months.
I'm
They
sure.
were so intrigued. They were full of questions about the bees, and we were standing right beside an open beehive because I was in the middle of doing my work. So I had a second deep off of the bottom one sitting beside. And there was bees all over the combs, and I'd pull a frame out and say, I got the little spoon. I keep little spoons in my shed, and I got the little spoons, and I said, here, taste, and they scooped the honey, tasted that.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness! So now they have a physical connection to that
Mhm.
beehive,
That's
right?
right.
So, I mean, that's the story. That's the connection these people really, really, really connect with. And they wouldn't, I'm sure anybody that gets that connection will never buy any other honey because,
Yeah.
because now that's their honey. They're part of that process now. So it's
Well,
almost a moral imperative for them to stick with
you
that
have
brand.
you have stimulated all their senses, right?
Yeah.
I mean, visually, I mean, listening to it, they tasted it. You have stimulated every aspect of them, and they're like fully involved in it at that point.
I was doing a graft, so we went to the builder and I pulled the cells out, and this is how I make queens, because they had lots of questions. Well, how do you make queens? And so this
Mhm.
is the queen cells, and oh man, they really got the whole tour. And so
Mhm.
yeah, they're connected now. They're part of that process. They're part of my brand now.
One other thing that we really haven't talked about before, and I don't really hear it mentioned a lot, um, and I know a lot of successful people end up doing things like this, but if you look at the people that I think are successful in whatever it is that they're doing, they're involved in like everything, right? These are the people that don't sit still. For instance, if you want to really focus your markets and selling in your neighborhood, your area, sometimes it's not just about going to a market and people seeing you and recognizing you. Sometimes it's um, a community organizer saying, "Hey, we're going to have a blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Count me in. What do you need? You need a couple gift baskets. What do you want? We give them back to the veterans. How can I
Absolutely.
do? Can I? I mean, maybe I'll write a check. What do I come out and volunteer an hour or two of my day at a booth or something? Tell me how to help. So get extremely involved in the area or community in which you want to be present in. And again, it isn't necessarily me going there and pushing my product and selling something. Sometimes it's me giving my time, and people understand or recognize, oh, that's Tom and Melissa with Via Honeybees, and I'm not doing this to pat my back. What I'm doing is I'm trying to help people understand, get involved in many areas in your community. Be the helping hand, give a gift basket to a veterans organization or whatever it is in your organization. Step up and kind of, be that person. And that will absolutely help push your brand recognition out there when it comes
I'm
to
not very good at that part. I do, anytime there's an event going on around here, there's generally a silent auction involved. And I'll be the first one there to give them products for the silent auction to make money for the community center or whatever it is.
Sure.
As far as working the pancake breakfast or something, I'm not as good at doing that part because generally I'm pretty busy in the summer keeping bees.
Well, there can always be times like in our downtime or our off season or something like that. I don't know. We're just throwing it out there for folks. If you want to be a real presence in your community or an area that you want to push or sell in, I promise you. And first of all, we're giving back to the community. So that in and of itself is its own reward. Helping people out. There is definitely a reward involved in that. That's kind of how Melissa and I try to live, our lives and helping the community. Yes, we have to make money. No, I cannot give everything away. That's not realistic. I will go broke and I'll be hungry. But, again, when things make sense or you feel like something that you're supposed to do, step up. If it doesn't feel right for you, leave that opportunity for somebody else.
If you're running a business, if those are your objectives, and that's not everybody's objectives, to run a business, a profitable enterprise, hopefully make a living, you're doing nobody a service if you turn it into a charity.
That's right.
You have to decide. I had to decide. I made a big mistake a few years ago with not raising my prices when everything else in the world started going up. And I paid the price. I didn't make any money for 2 years. It was brutal. I struggled so much. And then I had to have a real heart-to-heart with myself. And I had to ask myself the serious question. Is this a business or is this a charity? Because it's supposed to be a business. If you're not going to make any money doing this, then why are you working so hard? You might as well sell the whole thing and sit and watch TV all day because you'll make just as much money doing that. Well, that was much fun, but that's not the point.
That's right.
So it was kind of okay, because raising prices is so hard to do because you feel like you're really giving it to everybody. All your loyal customers that you love so much, you're just kind of turning up the heat on them a bit, right? It's so hard to do, and it takes a lot of courage to raise prices, but you really need to do it. It's a real necessity. If you're lagging the marketplace, you don't want to lag the marketplace. Do not lag the marketplace. Be the leader in pricing, if anything. And keep up with that year after year. I have to put prices up from time to time. And I hate doing it, but it's necessary.
Yeah.
There's a handful of people that I have a lot of respect for that do a really good business. And what was funny a long time ago is I told Melissa, I'm like, I'm going to push and I'm going to push. Everybody in this certain community always pushes this one company, and they're a great company. I love the people. We've had dinner with them before. They're great people. If it's something that I can't help out with, I'll absolutely refer them 100%. We've done it many of times. If they're in a certain area or they're looking for something that's really specific, I'm like, hey, we'd love to help you out and supply you whatever. But if you're looking for reach out to these guys. These guys these are what you're asking for. This is what you're looking for specifically. They can help you out. But yeah, so I told Melissa a long time ago, I'm like, I want to be the one when everybody in this group or this area is throwing up this person's name. I'm like, we're going to be that name they're throwing up. And she's like, you're ridiculous. And I'm like, it's a goal that we have in our mind. I'm not trying to take food off their table. It's not that. I'm like, there is plenty of room at this table for all of us, because what's the reality? Americans consume, and I don't remember what the specific numbers are, far more honey than we produce here. so we can absolutely support each other when it comes to this,
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just always been kind of fun. I view these guys as friends, chat with them all the time. If I've noticed that they've raised their prices, I follow them, they follow me. I'll reach out to them, have a phone conversation like, hey, you guys are raising da, 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 da. Yeah. And I'm like, well, let me know what, you're seeing. I'm like, I'm going to talk to Melissa too. I think that we're lacking in this area as well. And I'm like, I don't want to be the cheapest guy. I'm like, that is absolutely not my goal. Not even that the slightest. And I'm like, honestly, if you guys are bumping up to whatever, I'm like, maybe we need to reevaluate what our numbers are here on these specific sizes or areas. And I think we need to probably do something or similar to the same. And I'm like, I think we both have a very great product. We do very good business, and I want it to reflect that. I'm not trying to be cheaper than you. And I tell them that. I'm like, I'm not trying to be cheaper than you, so.
Well, I don't think any of your competitors would think poorly of you if your product is more expensive than theirs.
No.
Can't see how any, like if you come down the street and you start undercutting everybody's price, then everybody is going to not like you.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But
That's
if you're
right.
more expensive than everybody else, they're going to say, okay, well, I can compete because my product is cheaper. Okay.
Yeah.
That's who you're selling to. There was a principle. I took a little marketing course a few years ago, and there was a principle that they really hung on to strongly. And they said, the first thing you need to figure out is who are you marketing to? And they said, if you're marketing to everyone, you're marketing to no one.
Yeah.
So choose a sector, choose a customer, and market to that customer. And maybe it's the young family customer. Maybe it's the premium product customer. Maybe it's, and you don't want to be the, Vlasic pickles. There's a story about Vlasic pickles. That was the premium product. They sold more pickles than every other pickle company combined for a long time. And then I think there was change in leadership in that company, and they made a deal with Walmart, and they sold pickles for like $1.99 for a great big jar of pickles, right? They completely cannibalized their company because they can't put the prices up. They can't, so what they did was they took this premium pickle brand, and they made it the deep discount bargain basement product.
They made it the Walmart pickle.
So what they did was they didn't understand who they were marketing the pickles to in the first place, because they started marketing the pickles to somebody else, right? And it destroyed the company. It literally destroyed the company.
They need a farmer's market pickle, not a Walmart pickle.
Right. And there was nothing. It was a good product, right? It was a very good product.
Same pickle.
Yeah.
Exactly the same pickle. But they realized that it was costing them 50 cents a jar more to make the pickles than they were selling them for in Walmart. Right?
That's a problem.
That's definitely a problem. So
especially the volume that Walmart's going to move.
You don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So I mean that's one of the, and while I have the floor, one of the other principles, Keith, that I was thinking about earlier the week, and that I looked up and got some definitions on, is it's the idea of pricing. And when you go to the store, you can buy the small size, and it's $5, and then you buy the size that's twice that size, and it's $7, and then you buy the size that's 10 times that size, and it's $10, right? Economies of scale. You get a larger container. It's cheaper for the company to package it and label it and all that kind of stuff. And so there's that. And I know I've talked to a lot of beekeepers online who sell for $10 a pound, no matter what container it's in. Well, I think you're totally losing sales then, right? So why would you ever buy anything larger than a 1 pound container? Your pricing doesn't speak to the customer and convince the customer to buy what you want them to buy. And I think that's something that you need to do, decide what for your customer what you want them to buy, and incentivize them, and say,
Yeah.
if you're buying, if you step up a size, you're going to save this much money. Like my pricing, for example, and I'm going to go back to kilograms because this is the way it works out, which is about 2 pounds. Which is about 2 pounds, so you can do the math.
Okay, got it.
So every time you move up a size, you save about $1 a kilogram on the honey. And it's pretty easy for the customer to do that math, right? So they can figure that out. So it incentivizes them to say, well, if I want 2 2-pound jars, my large jar is 2 pounds. My small pail is 6 pounds. Well, if I want 2 2-pound jars, that's $30. I can get 6 pounds for 40, right? So, and I'm trying to do all this math in my head while I talk. So it's 4 or 6, so I can get an extra 2 pounds for $10, whereas it would be, 15 otherwise. So they can easily do that math. And another principle is, you can take this as predatory as you want, because there's all kinds of stuff you can do. One of the things is, you go to the movie theater, you see how they price the popcorn or even the soda pop, right?
Terrible.
Like if you had, it's high, but what the prices are is what I'm talking about, more than the fact that it's high. If you have a product and you have a small that's $3 and a large that's $7, you'll never sell the large, or not very many. Everybody will buy the small. If you put a medium in there for $6.50, everybody's going to buy the large, right? Because it looks like, well, for 50 cents I can get the large one, right? It's not for an extra $4 I can get the large one. It's like, it's only 50 cents more, I can get the large. The comparison isn't between the small and the medium. The comparison is between the medium and the large, and it's an obvious value. So that's how you can kind of push your customer into buying the product that you want them to buy. And I'm not suggesting that people go quite that predatory, but it's still a principle that you can use to be able to set your prices that work for you and work for your customers, right?
Sure.
You don't want to convince your customers to buy the cheaper product. It's a business, right? You want to convince your customers to get a better value buying a more expensive product. That's, I think we could all agree on that, right? Because it works for you, but more cash flow, and it works for your customer because it's a better value.
That's right. We've done the same thing with going from a 1 pound squeeze bottle up to a quart. And I'll be looking at them and say it's a family with, I see a couple young kids there, and I'm like, well, we sell the 1 pound squeeze here for $13. But if you're looking more for value and you like the glass, I'm like, the more value would be the 3 pound quart glass, and it's for $30. And I'm like, but I do see you have kids here. I'm like, I could also offer you another thought here. I'm like, if you like the idea of the squeeze, but you guys go through a lot and you don't want to buy 3 1 pound squeeze bottles and it costs you a little bit more, what I would do, I would buy the 1 pound squeeze, so you have the bottle. I'd buy the 3 pound quart together, put that in the cabinet. Now you can, as a mom, when you use that, the kids drop it off the table, it doesn't break, right? But you can also go to the cabinet or the pantry, little funnel, pour it in there, let it sit off to the side for an hour or whatever, and it fully kind of settle down inside there, put the lid back on it, put it back up in the cabinet. So now you're actually storing it in glass. And they're like, oh, well, that's a great idea. And I've even had some people say, well, that's a really good salesman. I'm like, well, actually, I'm just trying to look out for you, your kids, and then give you the most bang for buck here. But yes, I do sell a little more honey that way.
And I've done exactly the same thing. People want to buy these squeeze bottles, and I say, you know what, it's a little more expensive in the 1 pound squeeze bottle. This is what you can do, right? Get the pail, or get the 2 pound jar, or whatever. You save a lot of money, because one pound is $10, 2 pounds is $15. That's easy math, you know,
That's right.
and customers are into that kind of thing.
Some of them are.
Well, but that's not your customer. And I think that's a principle that we need to understand too. It's okay to say, that's not my customer and move on, right? Because again, if you market to everybody, you market to nobody. And you've got to understand and decide that there are certain customers that aren't your customer. Seek out your customer, not your non-cut. I've had in 11 years now selling honey, I've had probably 3 people say, your honey's too expensive in 11 years. 3 people. And you know how I respond? I'll say this pail is $60. Well, I can get that for $25 from so-and-so. Off you go.
That's right.
Brad, my response is, if you've only had 3 people tell you your honey's too expensive, you need to raise your prices, because that's not very many, right? Yeah.
Because they taste it. They know what it is.
There you
and
go.
it is the most expensive honey around. I mean, not by a huge margin, but I am careful to make sure that nobody gets a higher price than I get. Like, it's got to be up there on the top, right?
Isn't the psychology of salesmanship fascinating? I was a psych major.
Absolutely
and that's part
fascinating.
of what got me so into it. All the marketing and all of the persuasion and influence, and like you're talking about, you said the customers are into it. My response was, I think there's a population of customers that are susceptible to the bargain, right? They've got that bargain gene in them. For example, and we don't do this with honey, we don't bundle, but for lotion bars, $12, 2 for $20. We've got another product over there that's $12, 2 for $20. Feel free to mix and match. And there is definitely a population of customer who is interested in one lotion bar until they heard about that deal. And then they were like, oh, 2? Well, I'll just get one for my friend.
So now you get $20 instead of $12.
That's right. And another way we do that is the bundle in the form of a gift basket. So usually at our big festivals, we'll have baskets that are pre-shrunk wrapped. So it's got 4 or 5 products all together, which takes all the decision making out of the customer's hand. Which lotion bar? It's the lavender one. It's already in there. You can't switch them out, right? So it really helps kind of do that. And they'll get a couple of dollars, discount when it's the 4 or 5 things in the basket together. But that's a great bundle.
And that
too.
brings up another principle that is decision paralysis, right? Too many options. And I encourage people to pull back on the number of SKUs that you're offering. Like, offer a limited number of options and say, this is what, not say it, but this is what you're going to buy. Like, decide for your customer what they're going to buy. And I mean, make it worthwhile. It's got to be a good product. But 100 options, and it's actually people with ADHD are far more susceptible to decision paralysis than others. It's actually documented. They'd rather buy nothing than buy the wrong thing, right? It's really difficult. They don't want to compromise, and maybe I didn't buy the best one kind of thing, so I won't buy anything. So too many flavors, too many scents in the soap, and too many different things just can work against you.
You can help the customer navigate through some of that a little bit. Like, if I can definitely tell a person has been hanging out just a little bit too long, and there's other people that are there because I want to speed that process along, be able to get their money, give them a good product, send them down the road with a card and another way to contact me down the future for more stuff or continued business. You can kind of see them hee-hawing around just a little bit on something. And you might have asked a couple of questions. I'll call it like the Bryan Zavada effect. He'll always start asking some questions about something and helping you to form your opinion, right? He's really good at that. And I applaud him for that. I'm not making fun of him. I applaud him for that. It's very, very methodical thinking. But you can, you kind of feel him out and be like, well, let me ask you this. So you're trying to decide between the 1 pound squeeze and the quart glass. I'm just curious, how much honey do you actually use? And then what do you use it for? Well, maybe I can make a suggestion for you. If you do this, that, or the other, much like what I said earlier about the 1 pound plastic squeeze and the quart glass, so that they felt like they got value, but they still had the safety intact for their kids using that. Just different things like that. Try to feel them out and help them to make the decision for them. And sometimes it's a matter of, well, I don't know if I want the such and such creamed honey or whatever. And I'm like, why not buy both? I mean, I'm not asking you to buy two. I'm not asking you to buy 2 cars here. I'm not asking you to buy 2 houses. It's creamed honey for crying out loud. You know what I mean? We all waste $7 on a cup of coffee.
Well, they're both delicious, right?
Right. If you'll enjoy both of them, you know what? It's a very simple pleasure. Buy both. Occasionally you'll have people go, "Wow, you're a really good salesman." I'm like, "No, I'm just trying to make you happy here."
Yeah.
I'm here to help.
Yeah, I run into that. I've got several sizes of honey, but all I sell is liquid honey. Where Bryan and some of you guys have lots of different flavors, but you only use one size. So, but I run into trouble right now because I try to split out my light honey early in the spring and the dark honey. So on 4 of my sizes, I've got a light and a dark right now. So that causes trouble. I'll be glad when I get rid of the light honey. I've got the samples there so they can try the light and the dark to see which one they like the best. But but too many choices really mess some folks up. It'll really lock them up.
I know a girl around here. She makes preserves like jams and jellies and the like, and they do a really good job. They're just premium products. And the first time I met her was at a market, and she had like 100 flavors there. And I looked at that and I thought, oh my God, don't do that. Right. But you know what? She makes it work. She does great business. And I haven't hung around that table enough to hear her pitch as much to figure out how she does it. But she's very engaging. And I think what she does is she'll pull the customer in and say, what are you looking for? I'm looking for relish. I buy her relish. I love her relish. I'm looking for relish. Okay. Do you like spicy or do you like mild? Okay. Then with those 2 questions, I have 2 products. So you can forget the 98 products that don't fall in a category. These are your 2 products. Yeah. And I think she does that to so many other customers. It's a little bit more work, but customers, she has a fantastic display, and customers are drawn in, I think, by the wonderland of preserves that she has at these markets. But then she's got to work that to avoid, because if you just walked in there, it would be, oh my God. and it would, you wouldn't be able to see anything. She's got to direct that. And so that's a lot of work for her.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I want to give a shout out to a couple of super chats. Rob, $10 super chat. I really appreciate it, Rob. And Ann, I think she's already left us, but a $10 super chat from her. And I appreciate that, Ann, wherever you are. And all the folks over in the chat tonight, appreciate y'all coming in. It's been a real good one tonight. A lot of information. I've been quiet because I'm learning. I grew up working at my dad's service station, selling tires and oil changes and all kinds of stuff. So I learned a lot of my wheeling and dealing, I guess, from him. But it's great to hear other viewpoints, and I really agree with what Tom had to say about the adding value to the community. I really believe that that helps out a lot more than I ever thought it did. If y'all just like Tom said, I'm not patting myself on the back here, but if you watch on my Facebook channel, I do a lot of talks like at the library, or I go to a school, or we did something over to the law school talking about bees. The one at the library was bees and dinosaurs, but I love doing that. I love talking to kids, and I think they enjoy it. But the return from that was a lot more than I ever dreamed it would be. Just for like you say, brand recognition. Now I'm the honey guy, so that's great. I enjoy that. But that might be a good topic for a chat one night. Is beekeepers in the community? What all is out there that beekeepers can do other than just make honey, whether it's education, charitable stuff, different things. That might be a good. I'll have to think about that one. I enjoy that. So, but yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of good on that side that beekeepers need to take advantage of and teach folks in the community about bees. I think the return is
need to be known. You definitely need to be known. It's years and years ago. I remember when I was a young fella looking for jobs and whatnot, trying to, break into the community and in the job market. And there was the old saying that it's not what you know, it's who you know. But that's not the truth. It's not who you know, it's who knows you. Right? And that goes the same for trying to break into a job market to trying to, make your way in the marketplace. Knowing people is one thing, but when people know you, that's different. That's when your business takes on a life of its own.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
My hope is usually when it comes to the smaller kids, Melissa handles them a lot better since she has gone to school for that and worked with them a lot with the little ones and learns how to kind of manage them. I get more frustrated so I do a lot better talking with adults and such. So, but I've gone with her before and done those things, but reaching out to the community, my hope and my thought when we do those sort of things is like people ask, I'm like, no, we don't charge for that. There's no cost. I'm like, we're happy to do it with the retirement homes, taking care of our elderly people, the younger kids, molding minds, things like that. I hope that one day these little seeds that we planted, one of these kids is going to become a senator. It's going to become a CEO at a company, going to become a world changer, right? Something like that. And they're going to come back with a story and say, there's something that Miss Melissa had told me back when I was 10 years old at a school function, this, that, and the other, that set these things in motion. Or this particular individual didn't want to go with the conforming idea of whatever the normal mainstream jobs are nowadays, right? Wanted to be a commercial beekeeper and change things for the better in some way, shape, or form. That's in my head. That's kind of what I think about that may end up happening down the road, with doing the give backs to the community like that. So I don't know, it might be a little bit silly, but I don't know, at some point in time, you never know whose mind you might help to mold and how it might change.
Silly at all. Not silly at all.
So,
but yeah, I mean, that can happen. That can happen. You touch enough folks. Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
That's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Well, with that might be a good point to end on, Tom. A high note. I like that. So I think we'll go ahead and cut it off. It's been a couple of hours. Had a good crowd in here tonight. A lot of good topics. Had a really good opening. We went all kinds of places before we ever got to our marketing, but then that dovetailed nicely into that. So it worked out well.
When's your next market, Keith? Saturday? Your next market Saturday?
Yeah, I had to think about what day today was. Yeah, it's Thursday, isn't it? Yeah, Saturday. Got the Saturday.
So Melissa has left me here. Melissa's left me here in St. Louis all by myself. Melissa actually is in Tennessee right now.
Unsupervised?
Left today.
Wow.
Brad, can you believe that? Who would do such a thing? That is reckless.
That's neglect.
It is neglect.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, it's like
I think
leaving the kid
I think
loose
it's
in the
illegal.
store with the credit card, Yeah, so Melissa is
Wow.
gone for the whole weekend. She'll be back either Sunday or Monday, going for the honey show extent. Some sort of they had some new classes come up for the American Honey Show Training Council, and some, I don't know, some more classes, some bigger things, whatever. And she wanted to do it, so I told her I was going to stay home and continue to work and do my thing, and she could go do her thing. So, so I have to do a market by myself and this Saturday. So you guys wish me luck here, right? So I'll
Yeah.
be
So we'll see how much the
morning.
sales go down this weekend because Tom's there. Not Melissa, right? We'll see who really makes the money now.
He's going to cook the
Bryan,
book.
my goal is to sell triple what
Yeah.
we usually do, and I'll push my chest out, hold my head high, buddy.
Well, think that through, Tom, because she might just say, okay, you do all the markets by yourself from here on in. Like, you got to show her that you need her.
Brad, you bring up a very good point, and I had not thought this through entirely.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, think it through, my friend.
yeah, thank you for that enlightenment. I appreciate that.
That's pretty funny.
We'll
Yeah.
have fun, Tom.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate
Oh,
it.
you'll do great. But yeah, well, thanks to all the people that's been in the chat tonight. I really appreciate you being here. Hope you're finding these topics interesting that we're doing. You can see from Brad doing his homework tonight that the panel is putting some thought into this. So I appreciate that too. So, but yeah, thanks to Bryan, Tom, and Brad for joining in, and we will do it again next week. So for y'all in the South, hopefully you don't cook this week. We're going to have several days right at 100. So we'll be talking about that probably next Thursday. What a good time I had on Wednesday on the asphalt parking lot with 100 degrees under my little tent. So
Ouch.
watching my 90 weight honey turn into 10 weight. So why is this honey so thin? It's like, why are you sweating? So,
Yeah.
same reason. But anyway, thanks, folks. We'll do it again next week. Appreciate it. Y'all have a good week, and we will see you later.
Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
Well, that was fun, and that's a wrap. I appreciate y'all being here. I look forward to next week. Thanks to all the guests I had on my panel tonight, and thanks to all y'all for being here. We'll see you next week. Take care.